struggling here. Any tips? You swing. Aim for about an inch behind the ball. Here goes nothing. Did you see that? Sounds like it worked. Let me know if I can help with anything else.
Whoever decided to serve KFC chicken with my top honey is a genius. A sweet, sticky, spicy, crispy genius. Grab it for $7. Or share with friends for $25 before it's gone. Here's a little tune about things. We got the prettiest sunset you ever saw. Our flag is awesome and easy to draw. People are as friendly as can be. Yeah, we got two-stepping boots and jeans, Tex-Mex barbecue, chili, no beans, and we got ourselves a store called HEB. So when you check out, scan your app, get ready to scream, shout, and clap, because you can win free groceries for the whole dang year. But they ain't just giving one away, they'll pick new winners for 120 days as they thank you, Texas, for 120 great years. Starting a business is hard. You have to stay connected at all times.
As we've been growing the studio, Spectrum's been there every step of the way. I'm always able to make the phone call that I need. I'm able to shoot that text message or that email. Every vital piece of equipment that we have here uses Spectrum.
Fast, reliable internet, starting at $40 a month, backed by the Spectrum commitment to keep your business connected.
Choose adventure, then dive right in. Choose to keep going. It's your call. You can choose a change of scenery, or choose a change of pace.
Radio, and today was another major milestone because MSNBC finally fired Joy Reid, the angry black woman and really the most anti-white person in American media today. Word is that she may actually be allowed to host a couple more shows this week before finally signing off. Most likely because MSNBC is trying to appease her and not have her go on unhinged rants on Twitter and TikTok about the network is. They're not just getting rid of her because she is the living embodiment of the angry black woman behavior pattern, or that she is the most anti-white editorialist on television. She is a complete moron.
I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign.
This is her analysis of Kamala Harris's campaign. It was flawless.
She had Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She cannot endorse.
Hey, celebrities know what's best. And if Queen Latifah endorses a candidate, you know them.
She had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swift, the Swifties. She had the Beehive. Like, you could not have run a better campaign in that short period of time. And I think that's still true.
So that's what makes a successful presidential campaign in Democrats' mind. It's just having loads of celebrities endorsing you, not having actual policies that the American people want. Because the celebrities know what's best. This may also be MSNBC finally attempting to distance themselves from the insane Nazi, fascist, racist rhetoric that their hosts have been spewing about Donald Trump for over 8 years now. Here she is, making the final push, trying to encourage her mindless viewers to vote.
Begin our final sprint, having arrived at that point in the election season where basically we on this side of the TV screen have said all we can. We've laid out the stakes in this crucial election where one side stands for freedom while the other meets the textbook definition of fascism.
Well, of course, everything is the exact opposite. Because we stand for freedom, and the Marxists are the ones who are the anti-American scum.
A far-right dictatorial regime like Hitler's Germany or Franco's Spain or Mussolini's Italy, but also white-ruled South Africa before Mandela and the black majority took control, or Vladimir Putin's Russia, Viktor Orban's Hungary, or Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela today, that suppresses the rights of women and minorities.
The liberal mainstream media networks bear a significant portion of responsibility for the mental health crisis that is facing America. Not all of it, of course. Big tech platforms bear probably larger responsibility and the breakdown of the traditional family and moral fabric of society, but it's immoral, really satanic liars like these who have duped millions of morons who, maybe due to no fault of their own, still are so ignorant they trust the mainstream media. And so imagine watching this, not as like entertainment value, like it's a Jerry Springer show, but actually believing what these people say. You would think this is a fascist take over in America. And it's kind of no surprise that Joy Reid is a DEI hire. Not just at MSNBC, but it's the reason why she got into, wait for it, Harvard. Imagine Harvard allowing such an absolute ignorant, angry psycho into their school. But they did in the name of diversity.
Well, let me just be clear. I got into Harvard only because of affirmative action. I went to a school no one had ever heard of in Denver, Colorado, in a small suburb. I didn't go to Exeter or Andover. I didn't have college test prep. I just happened to be really nerdy and smart and have really good grades and good SAT scores. But someone came to Denver, Colorado to look for me.
Well, they weren't looking for you. They were just looking for unqualified black people in order to create artificial diversity at the university. Joyless's career almost came off the rails right when it first started on MSNBC, when people started digging through some of her old tweets and blog posts and found some rather unflattering commentary on the rainbow community. So then she came on air and kind of pretended to apologize, but really denied that it was her, because that's what these people do. They lie 24/7, even though the posts were archived in the Internet Archive, which is reliable enough archive that it's used as reliable evidence in criminal cases in court.
A community that I support, that I deeply care about, is hurting because of some despicable and truly offensive posts being attributed to me.
Being attributed, no, posts that you wrote.
And many of you have seen these blog posts circulating online and in social media. Many of them are homophobic, discriminatory, and outright weird and hateful.
Because you are weird and hateful.
When a friend found them in December and sent them to me, I was stunned.
See, she's trying to make it seem like a friend of hers found them to alert her that people are posting fake screenshots attributing homophobic content to her when it was really her detractors who discovered them and then discovered the real Joy.
Frankly, I couldn't imagine where they'd come from or whose voice that was. In the months since, I spent a lot of time trying to make sense of these posts. I hired cybersecurity experts to see if somebody had manipulated my words for my former blog. And the reality is they've not been able to prove it.
That's because there's zero evidence that anybody hacked your blog and changed anything, because those were your posts. And as inflation was rapidly rising, the price of food, gas, and rent is going through the roof, Joy Reid took to the airwaves to say that the only people who talk about inflation are those nerdy economists.
The people I ever hear use the word inflation are journalists and economists, right? So that is not part of the normal lexicon of the way people talk. So it's interesting that Republicans are doing something they don't normally do, right? Which is not use the common tongue, right? Not use just common English to sort of do on their campaigns like they're doing with crime. But what they've done is they've taught people the word inflation, right? Mm-hmm. Most people who would have never used that word ever in their lives are using it now because they've been taught it, including on TV, including in newspapers. They've been taught this word, and they sort of wrap this word around whatever it is that they really want to vote. The reason they really want to.
That's how sophisticated her and her fellow elitist journalists are. They are the only ones who know about inflation and understand.
It is the Yankees' third spring training game of the season, and they were taking on the Detroit Tigers. But more importantly, first post-game show of the season for us here on Pinstripe Territory. We did have some regulars in the lineup today: Jason Dominguez, Paul Goldschmidt. My recap, your reactions coming up.
How's it going, everyone? I want to take you guys through the new PlayStation 4 and 5 game releases this week. Honestly, based on the biggest game release of the week, it is going to be one of the biggest weeks of game releases of the entire year. I think outside of Grand Theft Auto 6 and the yearly releases like the sports games and Call of Duty, Monster Hunter Wilds may be the biggest game release of the year. I don't know if that's a hyperbolic statement. You guys let me know in the comment section down below. We got a couple games to go over. We'll start with that. We got a free game as well. But let's start off with Monster Hunter Wilds. Like I said, I don't know if I'm pushing too much hyperbole with Monster Hunter Wilds being one of, if not the biggest games. With those qualifiers that I just mentioned, I know that there's stuff like Mario Kart 9 coming out as well, but Monster Hunter Wilds is working as a multi-platform game, available on all of these different platforms. You get the idea. Needless to say, Wild is going to be one of the biggest game releases of the year, and based on some of the metrics that I've looked at, it's going to be the biggest Monster Hunter game of all time, and I really do believe it's going to elevate Monster Hunter as an IP into another level. Monster Hunter Wild is the next mainline Monster Hunter game. We did a full preview video of this game. Go check it out. And it's a story of monsters and humans and their struggles to live in harmony in a world of duality. Fulfill your duty as a hunter by tracking and defeating powerful monsters and forging strong new weapons and armor.
What is going on, guys? It is WrestleMania here. Back with some more news. Join us now as we look at the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know, including the WWE legend blamed for the awful SmackDown. The Rock reveals the original plans for the WrestleMania reveal. Why WWE were forced to censor SmackDown. Jeff Hardy wants to leave WWE on a good note. WWE are reserving Bloodline members. An indie wrestling star passes away in a tragic accident. Former WWE superstar spotted at TNA. Carmella officially gone from WWE, and much more. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Also check out our new videos on WrestleMania XL. Now let's the intro and get straight into our first story. First, we looked at a WWE legend blamed for the awful SmackDown. A WWE news report that fans are flooding social media with complaints about the Road Dogg's role in the 21st February SmackDown, an episode that received, well, very mixed reviews at best. Now, fans are claiming this to be the worst SmackDown of the Triple H era, and they weren't holding back on Twitter as well. As one user wrote, SmackDown literally feels like government mandate filler episodes for WWE up until actual episodes of Raw come on. Is it that bad? As we noted in our analysis of The Rock's extended segment with Cody Rhodes, the segment dragged at times and should have aired at the end of SmackDown, as its position in the early third hour sapped the show's remaining momentum. Again, how do you follow such an insane promo with a DIY match? A Ringside News explained why fans are blaming Road Dogg for the show and the segment. Earlier this week, reports confirmed that Road Dogg had been named the co-head writer of SmackDown, marking his return to the brand's creative team for the first time since his previous run from 2016 to 2019. However, fans had hoped for a fresh start, and they were sorely disappointed. And the Rock segment saw the final boss repeatedly praise Cody Rhodes before offering to help him fulfill all his dreams and reach levels even higher than The Rock has. Now, the only problem was that The Rock said he wanted Cody's soul in exchange, as some fans were confused by the segment, and there were complaints it went on too long, criticizing The Rock for one of his weakest promos ever. However, critics need to remember that this is Road Dogg's first week back, and it's unknown how much he even contributed to the show. It seems that fans are aiming the blame in the wrong direction, as fans looking to play the blame game might be interested to learn who actually wrote Friday's interaction between The Rock and Cody Rhodes. Fightful Select is reporting that Christian Scoville, who the site knows often writes Cody's segments, was listed as the segment's writer. Does this absolve the Road Dogg of any blame, or even Triple H, at least in the eyes of some fans, or should he be held responsible for everything that goes to air? Next up, The Rock reveals the WWE's original plans for WrestleMania's reveal. WWE fans know that WrestleMania 42 will take place in New Orleans, Louisiana, thanks to The Rock announcing it on this week's SmackDown. However, that wasn't the WWE's original plans for the announcement, as during the post-show press conference on Friday, the final boss revealed that we were going to be part of the Super Bowl and made the announcement at the Super Bowl. We had a couple of hiccups that we couldn't make that happen. Now, you may recall rumblings before this year's Super Bowl that WWE was going to use the blockbuster sporting event to announce its version of the Super Bowl. Would they have been better announcing it on the grand stage? I'm sure WWE are kicking themselves, as this year's Super Bowl averaged a record audience of 127.7 billion viewers. That could mean a lot of eyes on the WWE product. Next up, why WWE was forced to censor SmackDown. WWE Women's Champion Tiffany Stratton has been on fire lately, proving she has what it takes to be at the top of the WWE's Women's Division. However, on SmackDown, she was involved in two embarrassing moments. The first is when both Nia Jax and Candice LeRae failed to catch a dive from the top rope to the outside, which thankfully didn't end horribly, but the second led to WWE having to censor the show with a blank screen. As when Tiffany was near the turnbuckle, her top attire slipped, leading to a much-needed adjustment. WWE managed to see the slip and quickly censored the show with a black screen. But WWE censors were not so quick, however, when The Rock dropped some of the usual profanity during his promo. Next up, Jeff Hardy wants to leave WWE on a good note. Now, is Jeff Hardy looking to right the wrongs of his past? Jeff's brother Matt, who will be joining him when they appear on this Tuesday's NXT to Battle No Quarter catch crews Miles Bourne and Tavian Heights, commented about the return on the latest episode of Matt Hardy's podcast. He's very happy to be going back, and I feel he wants to right the wrongs. He wants to leave on a good note. No more erratic behavior. He wants to go back and show them who he is. And Matt suggested WWE may have taken a wait-and-see approach with Jeff when he and Matt returned to TNA. I think one of the reasons when we did this whole exchange going on, I think one of the reasons they probably waited a little while to pull the trigger and do something with Jeff and I was to just kind of see where Jeff was, just to make sure that Jeff is good. Now, while some critics believe WWE is doing the same with Tessa Blanchard, a wrestler that the promotion is reportedly interested in by having Blanchard compete in TNA to see whether there's any issues before bringing her into WWE. Next up, WWE reserving Bloodline members. One of potential Bloodline members, Lance Anoa'i and Hikaru, are going to debut in WWE. With tensions rising between Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu, some fans are curious whether Solo is going to bring in help to deal with the Samoan werewolf. PW Insider's Mike Johnson discussed Hikaru's status during a PW Insider Q&A, explaining that Hikaru has been busy at the WWE Performance Center. But Johnson did interestingly point out how all the Bloodline stuff has been methodically planned out, so it makes sense. But Johnson added that Lance Anoa'i is likely in the same situation, as WWE doesn't want to throw either talent onto television until they have a solid plan for them. The current buzz is that Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu are set to square off at WrestleMania 41, so be surprised if one of both talent show up before the show shows. Next up, TNA censoring Tessa Blanchard. As current TNA wrestler Tessa Blanchard continues to deal with allegations of past racist behavior and bullying, fans and reporters want to know what's going on, why TNA brought the controversial fit about. A new claim from podcaster Mike Gilbert of the Mike and JD show alleges that TNA won't let reporters ask Tessa about the allegations. Gilbert discussed this on his podcast, saying, TNA, they're doing a really bad thing with this Tessa. What I mean is they're putting her around the media in all these different markets, and they're telling people to interview her, but they can't talk about the allegations. Mike went on to explain they're playing this game with the media, and a lot of people, two people I know specifically, have said F you. Like, I'm not going to be dictated on what questions I can and cannot ask Tessa, so if I can't ask her hard questions, I'm not interviewing her at all. I don't want to interview anybody else because TNA is not in the position they're trying to be. And whilst this story hasn't been confirmed, it's not the first time since someone has questioned wrestling promotions' interactions with the media. For example, some critics have accused WWE of using journalists who ask softball questions at their press conferences. While it's not unusual for celebrities to grant interviews with the understanding that some questions are off limits, you can be sure in controversial cases like Blanchard's, who has denied all the accusations, that reporters are going to want answers and call people or companies out when they're censored. Next up, Miro returns to the ring. A former AEW superstar Miro didn't waste any time returning to the ring, as several news sites are reporting the Bulgarian brute competed in Qatar not long after his AEW release. Wrestling News reported Miro made his return to the ring on February 22nd at the Qatar Pro Wrestling event in Doha, Qatar. He faced AAA Mega Champion Alberto Del Rio. Lucha Libre Online tweeted about the bout. Translated from Spanish, AAA Mega Champion Alberto Del Rio was Miro's first opponent in his return to the ring, and it happened in QPW in Doha, Qatar as part of the Super Slam 3 Super event, which will be available on March 2nd. This is actually the first match that Miro has had since December 2023. A rumor has it that WWE Creative is working on a plan for his return to the WWE. Given all the preparation being made for WrestleMania 41, it'll be interesting to see if he returns before or after Mania, assuming he does return. Next up, two AEW talents ready to return. Now it appears that two talents in AEW are chomping at the bit to return to the promotion after an extended injury and illness-related absences. Fightful Select Sean Ross Sapp is reporting Luchasaurus, who's been recovering from double pneumonia, and Sky Blue, who's been on the mend since a broken ankle, are medically cleared. Those familiar with their status say that both are close, but those that being cleared by the doctors and cleared by AEW are two different things. AEW had operated on the assumption they wouldn't get Sky Blue back until spring. Next up, Isla Dawn addresses WWE release.
Cards.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. They put the thumb in your face. Yeah.
I'm just looking around and shit. That's me.
Brought this. When I was 7 years old in Denver, Colorado, it's my first wrestling event. And at the time, my favorite wrestler, who can you guess? This is the one right here. didn't tell me about the story where he had an initial one on the box. And then, growing up in a household of Latinos, y'all would know, I had to put my initials on it so my cousins wouldn't steal it from me. So this is a piece from my childhood that I brought today to show Kane that I've always been a fan. $10 man, we're pumped, y'all. We can't wait. Get down here. The folks are already lined up. We're ready to go. Tell them about it, Rowdy. So if you guys are already out there waiting in front of the store, I hope you're staying warm because we're going to come out there and get you pumped up in just a few minutes. But if you're here shopping and you're waiting for us to open those doors, we got toys for you too, guys.
Personal belts from my collection here. This is the WWE Winged Eagle belt. What's great about this one is it actually has the WWF block logo on it. You can't get those nowadays. Everything's WWE. And what's cool about this one is this is the version of the title that the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase tried to purchase from Andre the Giant after he had Andre take Hogan out for the belt. But President Jack Tunney came in and stripped Ted of the title and told him you can't win the belt that way. You got to win it by pitting somebody in the ring. So they put the title up for grabs in a tournament at WrestleMania where the Macho Man ended up with the belt. So this is a cool piece right here.
So I got a nice little sneak peek back here. I get to hang out with the crew, and I'm excited because I am a die-hard wrestling fan. I mean, I got the tattoo. I'm working on my Ted DiBiase tattoo. I wear nothing but wrestling. So I'm just like starstruck right now, like freaking out. Hey, if you're into wrestling, check out Living Room Referees. It's YouTube and TikToks. We just talk wrestling. We do a couple of videos on picking up toys and pops and such. Check it out if you're into the wrestling.
Here's a screenshot from the Island trailer talking about new superstar customization. And here's footage from WWE 2K24 that took me 5 minutes to pull together of me creating the exact same guy. Notice anything? It's the exact same assets, the exact same clothing. This should be a warning to everyone of what to expect. They say it in the trailer, future WWE 2K. But in reality, is this our doomsday? I feel obligated to speak on this because I am an NBA 2K loyalist. Not by choice. I'm addicted to the game, I'm not ashamed to admit. At one point, I was ranked top 100 in NBA 2K. I've been playing for 20 years, since NBA 2K5, and I have a physical copy of NBA 2K5 because that's how much history I have with 2K. I wanted to buy this just to have it in my personal collection. And I want to get into more details and shine some light as to what I'm seeing in the Island trailer and some of the red flags that I think we should all be worried about. So why don't we start with the trailer? First of all, it's super short. I timed it. There's only 48 seconds of actual gameplay footage. It starts out with a bird's eye view of the island. Honestly, it looks somewhat impressive for sports game standards. Until we get here, I'll say reusing assets in game development doesn't concern me. That's fairly standard practice, especially in sports games that come out every single year. My concern is how are these reused assets that have been in the game potentially for years previously for anybody to use for free, how are they going to play nice with the VC-based digital clothing purchases for your superstar? You know, if I'm 2K, this is a proven business model in the NBA 2K franchise, and it is a cash cow for them. They are also fully aware that customization is the heartbeat of WWE games and really WWE in general. Characters and merch run pro wrestling. They are ever evolving. So 2K execs are drooling at the mouth with this idea of the incremental business they're going to get from what you see in the screenshot, especially given the range of items they can have in a WWE game versus an NBA game. There's so much more variance in WWE that people would be willing to purchase for their character. People are going to want to customize their character and change it often, right? Or buy new merch that's coming out that they see on TV. The one thing that is concerning, though, is if you go to the official Ringside report, it says once you unlock an item in the island, it will also be available in the main game as a Create a Superstar part. And they even put an exclamation point at the end. They're so excited to share this news with us. But let's be clear, this is not a new feature. It's being marketed as one. But I can go into community creations on 2K24 and get a Rhea Bloody Ripley logo and put it on a shirt on a created wrestler. But if what I'm seeing here is true, I now have to pay 12,000 VC for a basic Rhea Bloody Ripley shirt. That is $4 real life dollars. On top of that, it's 36,000 VC for a jacket, which is 12 real life dollars.
For comparison's sake, I checked NBA 2K25. The equivalent of a Rhea Bloody Ripley shirt, let's say it's a jersey for my favorite NBA player. It's actually more expensive to get a shirt in WWE 2K25 than it is to get a jersey in NBA 2K25. That is not a good sign for us. We're seeing inflation in virtual currency. Now, the counter argument maybe is that this means the game will have more fresh content or evolving content, new attires throughout the game's life cycle, because there's more money going directly towards new attires being purchased through virtual currency. Okay, I can see that, but look at the screenshot. All of these jackets that you see are the exact same asset that has just been recolored or rebranded with different logos and then slapped with a $36,000 VC price tag. It's the exact same stuff the community has been doing for so many years. It's not a difficult thing for them to do, and yet they're getting $12 of straight profit for changing the color and logo on a jacket. The slippery slope of that, though, in my opinion, is in this next sentence. If I could just go and download a Rhea Bloody Ripley logo, slap it on a black shirt, and then assign it to Rhea Ripley or my created superstar, why would I ever spend $4 actual dollars on the Rhea Bloody Ripley shirt in the store? And if I'm 2K running a business, I'm very quickly going to notice this, label it as something like value leakage, and I'm going to quickly try to solve that. Essentially, I have a free alternative for my product within my product. It's counterintuitive to making money. So they can tackle that problem, I think, in one of two ways. You either design this My Superstar game mode in the island so well that people want to play this game mode and deck out their superstar and pay to make them incredibly good and have high attributes. You design this game mode so well that people don't really care about the Rhea Bloody Ripley shirt they can get on Community Creations because they care so much about decking out their My Superstar that's locked into this game mode. They're willing to spend 12,000 VC or $4 on that shirt. The other route, which is probably a lot easier for 2K as a business, is to start paywalling and restricting things that are available in the store from showing up in Community Creation. You give people only one option to get the Rhea Bloody Ripley shirt, and it's through the WWEshop.com, a Fanatics Experience store, only available on the island for 12,000 BC. It's a problem that's unique more to the WWE 2K franchise, which is why I'm interested to hear how they tackle it. And NBA 2K, creating a custom offline player isn't really a thing. So a long-winded red flag, but honestly, I think it's the most important one. It feels like Community Creation's death is kind of looming, maybe not this year, but in years future. And that would just break my heart, man. It's such a heartbeat of the WWE gaming community, and for 2K to sunset that for the sake of inflating top-line revenue, man, that would just kill the community. Another red flag is this nameplate that they've shown. It looks just like NBA 2K. So that level in the top right is linked to XP, which they talk about in the trailer. As you progress through levels, that unlocks certain content for you. Attires, My Team card, which is like My Faction, vehicles that you can use to navigate the city.
It's been hard to be an Xbox fan in the last couple months. I mean, sure, it's easy to like Xbox games. Black Ops 6 ended up being a fun time. Indiana Jones and the Great Circuit's excellent. Game Pass, still a real solid value proposition to make. Slice it. The Microsoft Games division is overall doing pretty well for itself. Its gaming revenue up by 43%. Still, the vast majority of that revenue is coming from games that come out on other platforms. More like with Black Ops 6, where it made much more on PlayStation than Xbox can consoles. But hey, revenue's revenue, right? The weird thing about the current moment is that if you just like good games, it's kind of great. There's some great games coming out. But if you're watching the industry, then it kind of feels like the sky is falling, especially if you're a hardcore Xbox fan. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on Game Ranks, we're asking, what the hell is going on with Xbox? So I'm going to go ahead and say, we've asked this question before. Last year we made a video, I think, kind of questioning whether or not the Xbox was safe, but now I think it's right to ask a little bit more serious questions. The most alarming headline recently is that 2024 was kind of the worst year in terms of hardware sales for the entire history of Xbox. In 2024, the Series X/S have only sold 2.7 million units total. The whole year, European sales even worse. There were only 290,000 units sold in all of Europe. It's an understatement to simply say yikes.
I didn't hear that.
In November, PS5s outsold the Xbox Series consoles 5-1. It's even worse if you restrict it to either S or X. But these are just numbers. They don't fully illustrate what's going on. So what is going on? Well, all right. I know this is a cliche, but it's complicated. All right. Right now, the Microsoft gaming division, along with the entire gaming landscape, honestly, is in a period of major transition. There is a whole lot of uncertainty in the gaming world right now. Developers and publishers that used to dominate the scene are struggling hard. Ubisoft had a terrible year in 2024. Electronic Arts, same boat. And just a few years ago, it would be laughable to suggest that EA or Ubisoft could go bankrupt or get sold off to some other company for parts. But that's where we are right now. Xbox, in comparison, has kind of always been on the knife's edge, no matter how well they've been doing. Their most successful console, the Xbox 360, had the whole Red Ring of Death situation, which they spent billions of dollars to keep the goodwill of the gaming audience, and for a little while it paid off. Not saying it didn't, but other than that brief moment in the seventh generation, Xbox has always been number 2 or number 3 in console sales. That's not winning the console war, and you might think the division was always secure because Microsoft's such a massive company, and the Xbox victories and losses are just a blip on their balance sheet. But and you know, to a certain extent, that's true. But all it takes is a CEO to come and start asking whether the whole console division is even necessary, and the whole thing just goes up in smoke. That's the thing about being an Xbox fan. There's always a danger of the rug getting pulled out from under you at any moment. Nintendo fans don't have to worry about that. Nintendo is a video game company. They're not something else, ever. Yeah, they make some nice money from people making movies out of their IP, but that's never going to be their main business. They have to make good games for anybody to want those movies. PlayStation is safe to an extent, too, because Sony is and always will be a hardware company unless something very drastic happens, and that means there's always going to be a PlayStation console because hardware is the cornerstone of their business. Microsoft is not a hardware company. They're a software company. It's in their name. Microsoft, as in software. Their money comes from Windows, and historically, their attempts at creating devices haven't been great. Remember the Windows Phone? Not a lot of people do. That's okay if you don't. But the only hardware Microsoft really cares about anymore is their data centers, which they can rent out to OpenAI, and they just basically get to be a digital landlord. It's passive income at a mass scale, to say the very least. They've got a stranglehold on tech with Windows Business software compared to the massive profits they can make off software, which costs them peanuts to distribute. Hardware is a much harder problem to solve for them. I'm saying all that to get to the big point of what I think is going on with Xbox. They're changing their strategy to more closely align with Microsoft's overall goals. It's why they put so much emphasis on the Game Pass model. It's why they're pushing the new Xbox Everywhere ad campaign. And it's why they're getting more and more games out there day one on competing hardware platforms. It's why they're now showing PlayStation logos in Microsoft Directs even, and why Phil Spencer has pretty much said they're not going to bring people over to Xbox anymore with these multi-platform releases. The goal is just no longer to bring players over to Xbox consoles. They just want people buying their games regardless of the platform. It's an interesting strategy for a console manufacturer, to be frank. In 2024, there's barely any reason to own an Xbox Series X console over anything else. If all Xbox games are just going to be on PlayStation anyway, and you can use Game Pass on PC, there's nothing driving sales, if that's the case. In fact, it seems like they're almost intentionally driving sales away from consoles because there's really no reason to buy one anymore if this is Xbox strategy moving forward. It's not all bad. I mean, I will say they haven't completely given up on their consoles. In 2023, we got a lot of stories about games struggling to run on Series S consoles and how bad Xbox's support structure was, but it does sound like things are improving on that front as well. Recently, Kingdom Come 2 devs got a lot of help from the Series S team to optimize the game to run on the S, and it actually helped improve the game on other consoles. Because, I mean, it runs on PC and PS5 very well. That work didn't only apply to the Xbox. I mean, everything's using that same chip architecture now, if I'm not mistaken. Still, it's just one more data point to support the fact that Xbox is going in a multi-platform direction. And they're not just improving games on their own hardware, they're helping optimize on everything. As a fan, it does feel like they're giving up on the console business entirely. I mean, the pathetic sales numbers for consoles in
Europe isn't strictly a supply and demand issue. It's not like nobody wants them in Europe. The problem is that if you do want them, they're actually getting harder to get. Near the end of the year 2024, Xbox's EU division admitted there was a hardware shortage, but had no information on when they would be restocked. There really hasn't been any other news either. Xbox consoles, especially the Series X, are just gone in Europe. They can still be ordered online, but if you want to get one in a store, I guess they're pretty vanishingly rare, especially in Eastern Europe of all places. The European market has always been notoriously underserved by Xbox, to be frank. But the situation has gotten worse. It all points to Xbox winding down its console division. But then again, that could actually not be the case. We don't know. Recently, an insider, keep in mind I'm putting that in scare quotes, but recently someone claiming to be an insider claimed to have information about the next generation Xbox, which according to them has hit a major development milestone. Phil Spencer has said that there will be another Xbox console, and there are rumors that they're also making a handheld. So it's not like Xbox's hardware is necessarily dead. It does seem like the Microsoft Games division is changing their strategy, though. And the thing about the low console sales is that console sales are down across the board. PlayStation, which handily outsold Xbox in 2024, only did so because of the PlayStation 5 Pro, a console refresh that has its own litany of problems and underperformed overall. It's not like Sony's been making a lot of great design decisions lately. It's possible that the future of Xbox, as we're projecting right now, is actually the right side of history. Perhaps the multi-platform shift is the right move. I think, though, ultimately their goal here is to make Xbox into the Windows of gaming. And nobody's a fan of Windows. In fact, they'll kind of hate it. But Microsoft has a stranglehold on business software, so it doesn't matter what they think. We're all going to keep using it anyway because there isn't an alternative that, as omnipresent. I mean, there are alternatives. Linux has been getting better and better for personal use, at least. And Mac OS is better at running some of the older PC games using Windows emulators. Like, Microsoft isn't the only player in the game, but
Hey guys, it's Simon. This is Wrestling Unlimited as Raw General Manager Adam Pearce has announced two more things for tomorrow's Monday Night Raw. First up, I guess you could say we will be getting a men's Elimination Chamber preview with the 3 men that will represent Raw: Seth Rollins, CM Punk, and Logan Paul. I mean, nothing can go wrong with all 3 of these men in the building at the same time, can it? Also, we do know that 1 week before she defends her Women's World Championship, Rhea Ripley delivered a message to her challenger, Io Sky. With adding these 2 things to the show, we now know 6 things in total for tomorrow's Raw. With that, if you do hear anything further pertaining to tomorrow night's Red Branded show on Netflix, we'll have it for you right here, Wrestling Unlimited.
Figure it out. After a slow start, he finally looks like himself, and the Lakers look like a problem for the Western Conference not only this year, but moving forward. It was a fantastic win against the Nuggets, a Nuggets team that has really dominated the Lakers over the last couple of seasons, and we finally got to see, quite frankly, the Luka that the Lakers traded for. Because early on in his Lakers tenure, he was being very timid. He wasn't being the Mavs version of Luka. He wasn't being the version of Luka that the Lakers traded away Anthony Davis first-round picks and the absolutely on fire Max Christie for. He was just being a guy that was kind of standing on the perimeter, occasionally taking a possession here, a possession.
What's good, y'all? It's 93 Zayden. We back at it with another one. Steve, what are you doing? Now, in case you've been hiding under a rock, this morning Steve Smith Sr. was outed by a man named Tony Martinez for putting his grown man inside of his wife. And Tony Martinez has receipts. He got the text messages that prove Steve Smith Sr. was putting his foot on the back of his wife's head. Tony Martinez also did the #1 cardinal sin as a man. He called Steve Smith on the phone to confront him about bending his wife over. Let's take a look at the video.
Hey, yo, Steve. Hey, you're fucking my wife, bro. What you gotta say for yourself?
I'm sorry.
You're sorry. You fucking knew she was married. You're not a fucking idiot, man. You're fucking Steve Smith Sr. What kind of dumb shit was that? Why are you crying, man? Be a fucking man. Steve. You're a fucking man, bro. All that shit you do on fucking TV, all that shit talking you to other people. Now someone got you on the fucking phone, you can't fucking man
Steve, like, I'm sorry. Steve, sorry ain't enough. Man, when he called and you heard his voice, Steve, you were supposed to hang up. Steve, now we know you married, Steve, so these text messages that you sent are out of pocket. Let's look at the text message. Now, I know y'all seen Twisted Crimes. I know y'all have seen all these different crime shows. We need to protect Tony Martinez's wife right now because who knows what his stability is like inside his mind, because any man that would see these text messages, they would have murder on their mind. Man, let's be real. Hey, this channel is keeping it real. Any man that see these text messages, their first thought is, that's what it's supposed to happen. You know, it's one thing if, you're not packing that much. Some people ain't packing a lot. And that's okay, there's always somebody for you, but if you go through your wife's phone and see another man say, I want to turn you over and get deep inside you, and your wife is responding like deep is an understatement. It felt like you were going to rearrange my IUD. You were so, my God. This man going through text messages, seeing that his wife is falling in love. She said the connection was something I just couldn't walk away from. The passion is hard to forget. He said I wasn't alone with it. She said, no, I was right there with stadium full of people, and I only saw you again. Being Steve Freaky Smith, like, you had me wanting to explode, right? But holding you was quite all right with me. Then Tony White said that spark lit fireworks. You were a gentleman, and that was part of the reason I came back. I wanted to give you a proper goodbye. What type of goodbye is she talking about? Steve Smith was rearranging this man's wife's mouth at the job.
Swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Have you gone through a time of swallowing where everything was overwhelming?
He said some, take me deep down your throat like you kind of like, I don't know what, his grandma, man. I don't know what's up with his grandma, but he said, yeah, you wanted to suck me off. And Tony Martinez's wife said, I did. I would have gagged on it, but I had to come home. Tony, at least she was thinking about you, man. She like, man, I should suck it, but I just gotta go home. Steve says, you enjoy it. You like to feel it. She's like, I like feeling it deep in my wet blanket. Me too. Letting you taste it though would be a turn on. I would have shot my man milk all inside your womb. She, and this is the part where I know he just got real twisted because she said, I love making your man milk come out. I enjoy it more when you ejaculate inside me. Now, it's one thing for your wife to be cheating. You go through the phone, you see they hanging out, they saying, oh, I miss you, oh, I really like you. Okay, you got no detail. But when you go through your woman's phone and see she gagging on BBC, and she getting flooded, oh my God. But I tell you one thing I'm not going to do is call that man phone. I'm not calling that man phone. Y'all know that saying, don't hate the player, hate the game. You got to chalk this one up to the game. You got to go get your walking papers. Go get his woman her walking papers. Tell her, hey, tell Steve Smith to take care of you. Tell Steve Smith to pay your bills because you got 72 hours. To find somewhere to go. Or if you can't find nowhere to go, I'm finna find somewhere to go. And that's only if they got children together. If they ain't got no kids together, oh yeah, baby girl, you gotta pack this up. Come on, let's go. You're not gonna be staying at my house letting another man have a daycare in your mouth. You're not gonna be staying in my house letting another man build an underground railroad inside you. What advice do y'all got for Tony Martinez? This is a part of the video, but I need y'all to beat the comment section up. What would you do if you came home and went through your wife's phone and seen these text messages inside her phone? Let me know down in the comment section. Would you be in jail? Let me know down in the comment section if you think he's going to take her back based off how he's acting. Don't forget to hit me with the HBO special. Help a brother out with some likes, comment, and subscribe. And this 93 Zay, and I'm out this thing.
Is the second largest state by population and area size. But this population is not spread out equally. Out of 30 million total people on 270,000 square miles of land, over 80% of the population, about 24 million people, live on less than 30% of all of Texas's land. So why do so few Texans live in West Texas if there's so much more space? Well, to answer that, we need to first go back in time. A lot of people live in Texas today, but that wasn't always the case. It took until 1970 for the state to surpass 10 million people, a feat that California reached in 1950, despite not becoming its own state 5 full years after Texas. But first, let's rewind and talk about who originally lived in Texas and how the state even came to be in the first place. As is the case with every state in the United States, indigenous peoples, including the Caddo, Comanche, and Apache, were the first to call this region home. And while the first Europeans to explore the region were Spanish, it would actually be the French who would first colonize what would become Texas. In the early 1500s, Spanish explorers arrived, claiming the land for Spain. But then they basically ignored the area for the next 150 years. And because it was ignored, the French accidentally established the first European colony in Texas in 1684, about 50 miles northeast from the modern city of Corpus Christi. For their part, the French were trying to establish a colony at the mouth of the Mississippi River, but miscalculated where it was. Realizing that France had now established a fort on their claimed land, the Spanish moved in and began colonizing the area. The Spanish built their first mission in 1690, Mission San Francisco de los Tejas, better known today as San Antonio. Between 1690 and 1820, Spain would build dozens of missions and forts all throughout modern-day Texas. In the early 1800s, Texas became part of Mexico after it gained independence from Spain. But its isolation from Mexico City made it a backwater. To strengthen its northern frontier, Mexico invited American settlers through the impresario system, offering land in exchange for loyalty and conversion to Catholicism. However, cultural differences, governance disputes, and Mexico's abolition of slavery fueled tensions, culminating in the Texas Revolution of 1836. After key battles like the Alamo and San Jacinto, Texas declared independence as the Republic of Texas. But struggling with financial instability, border disputes, and threats from Mexico, Texas joined the United States in 1845 as the 28th state. This annexation heightened tensions, leading to the Mexican-American War, which ended with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848, solidifying Texas's borders and adding vast territories to the U.S. Initially, Texas's borders extended further west and north, encompassing parts of what is now New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, Kansas, and Oklahoma. However, in 1850, as part of the Compromise of 1850, Texas ceded significant territory to the federal government in exchange for debt relief, shaping the state's current boundaries. And thus, the Texas we know today was born. But even historically, Texas wasn't developed equally. And this lies, in part, due to the physical geography of Texas. Texas's physical geography is more varied than you probably think. Spanning nearly 270,000 square miles, it's the second largest state in the United States. And because of this, it encompasses a diverse array of landscapes, from forests and plains to deserts and mountains. This variety owes much to Texas's position at the meeting point of several major geographic regions, including the Gulf Coast, the Great Plains, the Basin and Range, and the arid Chihuahuan Desert. So, starting in the southeast, the Gulf Coast is a region of low-lying plains, sandy beaches, and marshlands. Texas's coastline is shaped by the Gulf of Mexico, whose waters provide vital economic and ecological resources, such as fisheries and oil extraction. These coastal areas are home to major urban centers such as Houston, which houses deep natural harbors perfect for ports, and the barrier islands, including Galveston Island and Padre Island, which form a natural buffer against the forces of the Gulf. This effectively shields Texas's coastal cities from large waves during heavy storms. Moving north, the piney woods dominate the landscape, a region characterized by dense forests, abundant rainfall, and fertile soils. This area, part of the larger Gulf coastal plain, is dotted with rivers and streams that wind through verdant woodlands, supporting rich ecosystems and agricultural productivity. Further west lies the High Plains, a flat, windswept expanse that stretches towards the horizon. This region is part of the Great Plains, which has a semi-arid climate, deep canyons, and vast agricultural fields. The High Plains give way to the Trans-Pecos region in far west Texas, where the landscape transitions dramatically to the arid Chihuahuan Desert, home to rugged mountain ranges such as the Davis, Chisos, and Guadalupe Mountains. Guadalupe Peak, the highest point in Texas, rises to 8,751 feet, which is a bit surprising given that Texas isn't culturally known as a mountainous state. Texas's rivers also play a crucial role in shaping its geography, with the Red River, Brazos River, Colorado River, and Rio Grande among the most significant. The Rio Grande in particular defines much of the state's southern border, winding through canyons and deserts before emptying into the Gulf of Mexico. These waterways have long been lifelines for human settlement and agriculture, providing essential resources in a landscape often marked by extremes. When you look at the state as a whole, Texas gets drier as you move from the eastern areas to the western half. And this leads us to our final question as part of this video. Why don't more people live in the expansive West Texas? At over 30 million people on 270,000 square miles of land, Texas is both the second largest state in the country by population and area size. But that doesn't mean its people are equally spread out. In fact, the opposite is true. The overwhelming majority of Texas's population, about 24 million people, lies in the far eastern part of the state, leaving just 6 million in the vast expanse of the West. And while it may seem like the climate is the clearest answer here, this disparity is due to a combination of historic, geographic, economic, and climatic factors, all of which have played a role in shaping settlement patterns and the state's modern demographic landscape. Texas's geography is surprisingly varied, spanning nearly 270,000 square miles and encompassing forests, plains, deserts, and mountains. Its variety stems from its position at the intersection of major geographic regions, including the Gulf Coast, Great Plains, Basin and Range, and the Chihuahuan Desert. But by and large, Texas gets drier as you move from east to west. This is because the climate of the two regions is markedly different. East Texas, contrary to the popular conception of Texas as a Wild West-style desert, is fairly lush. Much of East Texas averages about 40 inches of rain per year, with some parts getting as much as 70 inches. To put this number in perspective, Seattle, Washington, well known for its rain, only averages about 40 inches per year. In contrast, West Texas is far drier and lacks a lot of the water resources and rain that enables the essentials of human life. El Paso, Texas's far west metropolitan area, only gets about 8 inches of rain per year. This means that early settlements would have had a much more difficult time surviving. But of course, today the United States is home to many large metropolitan regions that exist in deserts, such as Albuquerque, Phoenix, and Las Vegas.
So this climatic difference can't be the only explanation at play.
The economics of Texas also explain the state's incredible population disparity. During the early 1900s, East Texas became an economic hub for the country for one reason: oil. In the early 1900s, the discovery of oil outside Beaumont, Texas, started a boom that attracted workers and industries, leading to the rapid growth of towns and cities. Houston, the largest city in Texas today, emerged as a major economic center due to its strategic location near the Gulf Coast and its role in the energy sector. And other cities like Dallas and Austin benefited from their positions within the more hospitable environment of Central and East Texas, further concentrating population growth in this part of the state. At the same time, West Texas developed on a much smaller scale. Ranching became the dominant industry, taking advantage of the vast open spaces provided by the Great Plains. But this industry in particular required far fewer people than the oil industry, which led to fewer urbanized areas. And while eventually oil was discovered in West Texas as well, particularly in the Permian Basin, it happened well after Houston became the dominant center for Texas's energy industry. Smaller cities such as Midland and Odessa grew as centers of the West Texas oil industry, but they remained relatively small compared to their eastern counterparts, where oil money still flowed. Now, money has a funny way of impacting regions around the world. When a particular area begins attracting population and a large economic base, it spawns an equally impressive infrastructure system, which then contributes to more people moving to the region. So it's no surprise then that infrastructure today plays a key role in this divide. East Texas has long been more integrated into transportation and trade networks of the United States, with major highways, railroads, and airports all linking its cities to the rest of the country and the world. The Port of Houston is the largest port in the country, with over 275 million tons of cargo moving through their terminals every single year. This port serves as a gateway for international trade, enhancing the economic vitality of East Texas. West Texas, by contrast, remains far more isolated. While Interstates 10 and 20 connect El Paso to Dallas and Houston respectively, there's not much else to really enhance interstate trade and transportation. This isolation has made it less attractive for businesses and industries that rely on connectivity and access to markets. Though it should be pointed out that Juarez, on the Mexico side of the border near El Paso, is a fairly large metro region with approximately 1.5 million people. Because of this infrastructure, urbanization has cemented East Texas's dominance in terms of population. Metropolitan areas like Houston, Dallas-Fort Worth, San Antonio, and Austin have become economic powerhouses, attracting people from across the state, the country, and the world. These cities offer job opportunities, cultural amenities, and educational institutions, making them magnets for migration. In contrast, the smaller cities of West Texas lack the same level of economic and cultural pull, resulting in slower population growth and less urban development. But one thing West Texas does have are unique cultural and natural attractions that draw people to the region, such as Big Bend National Park, Guadalupe Mountains National Park, and the Davis Mountains. While these areas offer opportunities for recreation and tourism, they haven't translated into significant and permanent population growth.
Today, Texas is home to a little more than 30 million people, 24 million in the east and 6 million in the west. This is a huge population discrepancy, and it's primarily because the east is now where the state's major cities are located. Dallas is the largest metro